guest or someone else who can kind of talk to us. So I'm going to be talking about one of the hottest topics in baseball, let alone independent baseball. Something I'm asked about all the time, something where if I mention I'm interested and I do a show in baseball, the next question from especially non-baseball people is, do you know the Savannah Bananas? Have you seen them? Have you follow them on TikTok? So let's talk about the Bananas, because the Bananas are surprisingly controversial. If you're a hardcore baseball guy, I am willing to predict you're not a fan. If you're not, I'm willing to predict you are. And that's been, for the most part, the divide. It's not 100%, but that's what I found. As a fan of baseball business, I love them. As a fan of baseball, I don't know how to feel. I guess we should start the conversation talking about some of the things that the Bananas do right, which is a lot. Things that should be, I believe, also emulated for the most part by many teams. I eat up baseball business talk. I love that kind of thing. So I tend to think of myself as not maybe an expert, but I know a lot about baseball marketing and branding and things like that. So allow me, if you don't mind. I mean, I don't need to pull my resume out. It's weirdly short, but it's also like weirdly in depth for someone covering into league baseball. But that's a different combo for another day. Check my LinkedIn. It's not up to date. But to the point, things I've noticed, I mean, the obvious thing that they do is their marketing is incredible. Their social media work's incredible. By far million plus TikTok followers. They have a deal with ESPN now. If you don't know, they're a team that played in the collegiate summer cycle down there with a few other sort of local-ish teams. Then they identified during the pandemic, since that league wasn't playing, they ended up doing this game Banana Ball that they kind of put on by themselves between them and another team they built called the Party Animals, which have a good vibe. And it became profitable enough and sort of big enough and enough an attention grabber that after last season they decided they would no longer be pursuing the collegiate summer ball angle and only be doing Banana Ball hosted out of the stadium down there in Savannah, Georgia, as well as going on tour and playing many teams, especially Indy ball teams, since Indy ball teams have a more flexibility to actually play the Bananas or the Party Animals. So, if you have a minor league team, your affiliate, talk about the fun you can and can't have based on being an Indy ball or not. If you're an affiliate team, good luck convincing the major league club that you want the minor leaguers, who they've paid many of them a good bit to play an exhibition banana ball game against the Savannah Bananas. It doesn't look great. So beyond that, I mean, the team is made up of, there's usually like a 4 major league, like Eric Burns was managing them, but they'll get some celebs, sort of some baseball circle celebs, a lot of indie ball guys end up finding their way there, a lot of former minor leaguers, things like that. It tends to be lower level, but they do scatter in some higher talent guys, and that makes up the team. But back to kind of what they really do well, which is they know how to get attention, they know how to trend, they know how to get people viewing them, and they sell merch like crazy. The experience of the Savannah Bananas, in short, is intentional. If you ever bought something from them, if you ever bought tickets or merch or whatever else, it's like you get a follow-up email, which is like kind of funny, and like it feels like a Savannah Bananas like vibe, like talking about like, oh, we're celebrating the office, here's what we're doing, here's a YouTube video of how we're celebrating, like all that stuff. They send you like extra stuff with the merch, like koozies and things like that, like little things. It's just a fun vibe. The game is exciting. The things that, like, even if you call their front office with a question, the every touch point, where you meet them and experience them is always upgraded. There's always a little something extra, some Savannah Bananas flavor to it, exquisitely done, adds to the value. And I think that's something that probably every team could learn from, maximizing the value. So it's something that you're doing something different. You're not just another team. We're dealing with just another fan. You're dealing with, like, those fans are dealing with your team, which is their team. You love them. You're giving them everything you can. And, economic uncertainty or, just a lot of entertainment options out there. It pushes you to be a value for those fans and something that they don't want to let go of. They have a fear of missing out on. And also, they feel that you treat them well, you value them, you value their time and their money. And people see that. I think that makes sense. We go to things that we feel like we got our money's worth. And things that, also is an experience that we don't think we can get. It's an experience economy now. Live shows are doing great. As Ticketmaster. So that is stuff they're doing very, very well. Where does it get a little controversial? Well, also, just to close that, the big thing about merch, they have a huge merch operation there. They do limited merch drops, so they don't have extra inventory sitting around. Very intelligent way to do it. A few things at a time in the store, all are very attractive, so they can send them quick. And then they just have a very good understanding that there's only so many games. The ticket revenue is limited. You can only sell so many tickets to so many games during a year. But there's 8 billion people on the planet that can wear your shirt, that can follow you on TikTok, and you get TikTok revenue. Like, all of that stuff is the ESPN3 deal that they now have. All that stuff is what can start bankrolling a team when it's hard to run a good, profitable indie team right now. And Savannah has found a way to do it. And that is something that teams should be looking at, especially as, hey man, you got to support your employees and your community. So keep an eye on that. Now, things they're a little controversial about. Back to that. The move to only banana ball. I mean, I get it. It's an entertaining way to do things. I wish, and I know a lot of people wish that they did this by, showcasing, like, I wish they presented it as we're showcasing the best of baseball, but they tend to showcase it, if you've seen it, as like putting down baseball. This isn't boring baseball. This isn't, and which is true in many respects. The baseball product has changed a lot, but, a lot of people still love the game. And I think it would do a lot, and it wouldn't hurt them the way they do things to put down baseball a little bit less. I understand they're trying to like knock off the sort of negative thoughts that potential fans who don't like baseball might have to draw them in, and they do a good job of doing that. But at the same time, I feel like for the most part, if you're a non-baseball fan, Savannah Bananas, unfortunately, it's not a bridge to baseball. It is an alternative, which is not great for baseball as a whole. Specific to Indy ball, they do grab up players. I've heard from 4 general managers now that they have lost players to the Savannah Bananas. That is something that never would have happened previously. That is insane. Does that say something about maybe how indie leagues should work a little harder to keep their guys and to spotlight them and to lift them up and to get them out? Yes. Does that say something about how there are a lot of players who just rather make the most of the spotlight with Savannah? Yes, fine. And are there guys who just, aren't hungry for what indie ball presents, but they get paid well with Savannah, and they, it's a more laid back vibe, and that's how they'd rather make their money. Yes, fine. Do your thing. Cool. But, from an indie ball side of things, that is not necessarily a net gain for indie ball as it goes. And then beyond that, the other complication people should be aware of, we talked about the Black Sox earlier, but it's not just them. It is a lot of these teams, when they bring in the Bananas, are replacing spring training games. The spring training games would have been against maybe other teams in a league or another league, both of which are important sort of connecting experiences if they're done right and marketed right and appropriately, which is another toss up, but we'll deal with that. But beyond that, you also run to games against like the Black Sox or the traveling sort of teams, which would have given opportunities to guys to showcase their talent. And now they're not getting that opportunity. Even if we're looking at the rosters, I don't know how they're going to use rosters in these banana ball games. If a guy comes in and gets a hit in banana ball, a guy who's trying to gain a spot and trying to earn a spot and show that what he's capable of on a stage he doesn't really get very often. We're talking like guys who are barely on the roster, maybe not on the roster, fighting for spots. What does that mean? What does that mean relative to hitting a double off of a Blue Crabs pitcher if you're one of these teams bringing in somebody, or a Black Sox pitcher? If you hit it off of a guy sort of thrown between his legs, if you hit it off of Bill Lee, yes, the Bill Lee you're thinking of, who occasionally throws for the Bananas, what does that do? What does that say? Does that help you? And I think that's something that is, worth looking at as not necessarily net positive. Now, I'm not going to come down on the Bananas. I do think they are probably a net positive for baseball, that's my opinion personally. However, I wish there were some things that they tweak, but I think they are setting an important model for how to do things. A lot of guys tell me when I talk to baseball people and people in baseball circles, I don't want to do what the Bananas do. Okay. Don't put your players in kilts. Don't dance on the field. Cool. Respect the game. Inside lines, we know what we're doing. There's no reason that you can't take what's outside the lines that the Bananas do and replicate it and do it great. And if you have better talent in the field, boom, that's more power to you. And then you can start moving merch and making the money that they make and, setting the model for things. So those are my thoughts on that. I want to know what you think. If you're watching right now, drop it in the comments, reply on Twitter. Let me know. I'm interested to see what you think. Maybe we'll go over some of the better responses to it, sort of closing the loop next time. This sort of pace of this Bananas conversation, by the way, is a little bit more of what
I may not have a lot, but I love what I got. A 4x4 and a good fishing spot. I hope this time my card won't decline.